Yo, what's popping? What's popping? How everybody doing today? I'll wait for some of y'all to come in the chat. I'm your host, Chedda Chaz of Boot Crew Media, 7 Days Media Entertainment. And we're going to talk about the Pelicans offseason. So far, I'm already just worn out by this offseason. I'm used to watching every game, every night, recapping the games. And, now it's getting a little boring. It's been a very exciting playoffs, but it's always boring when your team isn't a part of it. And it's ironic that I'm doing this show today, and Kendrick Perkins, shout out to Kendrick Perkins of ESPN, Boston Celtics. Y'all know Kendrick Perkins. And Scoop B, shout out to Scoop B, Bally's Network. They had an interesting discussion about Brandon Ingram and a trade proposal with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, I had a trade proposal with Brandon Ingram and the Minnesota Timberwolves, but they had a different big in mind. Kendrick Perkins is in the belief that Brandon Ingram needs a fresh start, and a deal with Rudy Gobert and Brandon Ingram would be a win-win for both sides. Of course, the Pelicans have needed a defensive anchor at the center position for quite some time, right? But see, I think that's a bit of a misconception. If you don't watch like every single Pelicans game, I'm not saying Perkins does or doesn't. I'm just saying if you don't watch every single Pelicans game, it's a bit of a misconception. I thought Jonas Valanciunas was solid this year. The Pelicans ranked top 6 in defense this year. He was solid. I don't think the Pelicans need a stomp down defensive player of the year like a Rudy Gobert at the 5. I think that's a bit unnecessary. Shout out to my dog Lito. Check out the Godcast on Boot Crew Media, hosted by Lito the God. That's my partner, Uptown's finest. What was that? But yeah, so what I want to talk about, and we just go Herb and Rudy. What was that, sis? I knew who you was, Herb. See, that's not enough shooting though, bro. That's the thing I worry about. I worry about the offensive efficiency of a lineup like that. Now, defensively, it would be incredible. But let's get into the trade since I got my people in here. This is something simple, something clean, smooth move, and it helps both teams in the short term. But by Minnesota having a strange ownership situation going on, I don't really know how interested they'd be in something like this. Now check this out. You got a simple move, Brandon Ingram and Larry Nance for Karl-Anthony Towns, right? Here's why both teams do it. For one, Brandon Ingram, he had a lot of success under Chris Finch when what up? He had a lot of success under Chris Finch during his first year here with Elvin Gentry. Chris Finch was a part of that offense, and Brandon Ingram had his probably most successful NBA year. All-star, most improved player, shot 6 threes a year. He excelled under Chris Finch. Pelicans do it because Karl-Anthony Towns is an incredible big man. Traditionally, he's played the 5. He's had a ton of success at the 5. Multiple-time All-NBA player, multiple-time All-Star. In fact, if the Pelicans wanted to trade for Karl-Anthony Towns prior to the Dallas Mavericks series, he probably would have been ungettable. You probably couldn't even have gotten him. The only reason that this is even a discussion is because he dealt with some injuries. I think he had a meniscus injury that he returned ahead of time for, and he had a rough playoff series, maybe a series and a half. But he's also responsible for winning several games almost single-handedly during this postseason. So that's one deal. Now, here's why I think the Pelicans or the Minnesota Timberwolves wouldn't do it. I think because Ant has ascended to being the top dog in Minnesota. And has ascended to that point. Also, that was a long time ago that Chris Finch played with Brandon Ingram. Now, maybe he feels like he can get the best version of Brandon Ingram because he has that experience with him. But Anthony Edwards also has experience with Brandon Ingram during the FIBA tournament, and that didn't really go too well. So I don't know if Ant probably felt like, nah, I already, we've been down this road before, and we just don't mesh. It ain't gonna work. I'd rather, stick with what we got. I don't want to go chasing waterfalls. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. That's a real possibility. But for the Pelicans, for Karl-Anthony Towns, the only real complaint I think anyone would have is the contract situation. It's a crazy contract. Now, when he got the contract, he earned it, right? He was playing the 5. He was probably the best or top 2, top 3 best bigs in the game at the time when he got that contract, right? Top 2, top 3 bigs at the best, best bigs in the game. Best, according to him, best shooting big in history, according to him, right? So I don't really know if, I don't really see too many downsides aside from that contract, man. I don't really see too many downsides. Let me see what y'all saying. We want Spider. Yeah, you know what? Whatever, y'all. We want Spider. You know what, man? Yeah, the Donovan Mitchell deal would be super. It would be incredible. But it's like, I don't really know, bro. Like, I can't see a scenario where he say play the Lightning. Look, know what? If we was on if we was on the other show, I would. I would have that queued up. But I just don't think the Donovan Mitchell thing is realistic, bro. For real. Ice Trey. All right, let's talk about Trae Young. Let's talk about Trae Young. All right, now here's a bit of a crazy deal. Let me know what y'all think about this. Okay, you got Trae Young and Jared Allen coming to the Pelicans. You got Darius Garland, Brandon Ingram, and Larry Nance going to the Hawks. You got DeJounte Murray, Clint Capella, and Dyson Daniels going to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, this trade, and I gotta put this out there. This trade makes a lot of sense if Trae Young is available and his trade market is as depreciated as reported. Here's why it makes sense for Cleveland. You're getting, what's that? You're getting 45 mil. Well, you're getting about $22 million in expiring salary. You got a guy like DeJounte Murray who has positional versatility, shot a ton of threes this year at a very good clip. So he's proven he can play off ball. He can defend along the perimeter. Former All-Star Dyson Daniels can defend along the perimeter. Offense has a ways to go. Offense, I'm gonna keep it real, has a ways to go. In the event that they don't want to pay Okoro, maybe they pivot to a Dyson Daniels. You got Clint Capella as a stopgap, center, but really what he is more of a backup for Evan Mobley. You allow Mobley to play the center full time, and you're basically just using Capella at his expiring salary. Now, for the Hawks, here's why it works. You pretty much get the reset. You get the, well, not reset. You get the retool. And you get to stay competitive. And in the event that you don't want to keep Brandon Ingram, in the event that you don't want to keep Brandon Ingram, that's Brandon Ingram plus Larry Nance. That's probably $40+ million in expiring tradable salary. You can repackage a Brandon Ingram and a Larry Nance and use that as expiring salary in the event that another superstar shakes loose, for lack of a better term, at the trade deadline. For the Pelicans, it goes without saying, there's been a lot of discussions around Trae Young and his defense and Trae Young and just his attitude. Some of these things none of us have any real clue about. Defense, okay, you can make that argument, but here's the thing. When you look at the Kyrie Irvings, you look at the Tyrese Halliburtons, when you look at the Jalen Brunsons, I don't think anyone's going to argue that any of those guys are like these defensive masterminds. Like, no one's going to argue that any of those guys are like Herb Jones or Tony Allen, right? What they excel at is being incredible offensively. They're incredible offensive players. They each have the talent, and they've shown and proved that they have the ability to be the best player in a series at any given time. Now, again, I have no idea if Trae Young is available. And in fact, if I were Atlanta, it's better to sell a year too early than a year too late. But if I'm Atlanta, Trae Young is a guy who, I don't know, you could probably do a little PR move and kind of like, quote unquote, clean up his image and heighten his trade value. But I think Trae Young is incredible. If possible, shout out to Benji. 6th ranked defense 2 years in a row, 0 playoff wins. The Pelicans had several instances in this OKC series where they got several stops in a row, couldn't go down and get a bucket, because at the end of the day, all that matters is who can get a bucket. Anthony Edwards, incredible individual defender. When they gave that ball to Luka got the bucket. Rudy Gobert, incredible defender. Luka had him on skates, got the go-ahead 3, got the bucket. In Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken, Minnesota was the #1 defense, if I'm not mistaken, got the bucket. You look at Boston. Boston's always had an incredible defense. Now, KP was out, of course. KP was out. That's to be fair, but they've always had an incredible defense. When it got in, was that Indiana was competitive in every single game, and Indiana ranked like near the bottom of the league defensively because they were getting buckets. Boston, as great as they were defensively, in that series, they couldn't stop Indiana's offense most of the time. Let's see what y'all saying in the chat. Try LaMelo. You know what? I'm not anti-LaMelo. Some people anti-LaMelo, man. I get it because of the injury concerns, but the Pelicans got an incredible physical therapy staff now. Shout out to Amy Atmore. They're doing great things, and that's why you bring in people like that so they could like get the best out of your guys. Brandon Ingram played the most games he's played since his rookie year. Zion Williamson, he gets hurt with a freak hamstring injury during the postseason. So, they did their job. You know what I'm saying? They got these guys on the floor. Can the Pels get Jalen Green? I'm going to say yes. I believe they can get Jalen Green. I watched a lot of film on Jalen Green. Only thing about Jalen Green, he's a guy who he needs a lot of shots to get going. He needs a lot of shots to get going. The talent level is there. The ceiling is there. You saw when Sagoon went down, how Jalen Green was able to excel. And I mean, he was just putting on the show. The athleticism is off the charts. And he seemed to really find his niche in the league. And honestly, I got a deal on here with the Rockets that is like, now Jalen Green isn't the player coming back, but if the Rockets decide to pivot from I'm not game I was going you wild. If the Rockets decide to pivot from the Mikal Bridges pursuit, because they don't look like the Nets going do that. If they decide to pivot from the Mikal Bridges suit, I think Brandon Ingram is an obvious second option. Now, let me see. I got some on here about now this is complicated with the Rockets. This is complicated because of how the Rockets contract situation is. This is something that, it would be interesting. It would be interesting. Okay. Now, in this deal, you got Brandon Ingram going to the Rockets with the Pelicans pick this year, which is 21st. You got DeJounte Murray, Bogdanovich, Jabari, and Jeff Green. And the Rockets' third pick going to the Pelicans. You got Steven Adams, Larry Nance Jr., Dyson Daniels, and 2 firsts going to the Hawks. Now, this looks like a bad deal for the Hawks. Looks like a bad deal from the Hawks on the surface level. But this is why the Hawks may consider it. The Hawks are in really bad they have really bad salary cap issues. Like the Pelicans, like Minnesota. They have really bad salary cap issues. So what you're giving them is a ton of expiring salary. You're giving them a ton of expiring salary, and you're giving them 2 firsts for their troubles. Why the Rockets do it, you got a great coach over there. You got a great veterans over there. Fred VanVleet, saw what Dylan Brooks was able to do. You got you got a stud in Sagoon. You got a stud in Sagoon. You got Jalen Green. In the event that they don't want to break that duo up just yet, because they're gonna have to pay them dudes soon. So they're gonna have to make a decision if they're gonna pay them. And we'll see what happens with that. We'll see what happens with that. Because Jalen Green, Orlando would be interesting with Jalen Green, in my opinion, also. But and here's why the Pelicans do it. Jabari Smith, I think Jabari Smith is like his fit at the 5 for the Pelicans is just incredible, in my opinion. The Pelicans have been in high pursuit of Evan Mobley for a long time now. And I think Jabari's future at the 5 is his ceiling at the 5, in my opinion, is even higher than Evan Mobley's. Switchable defense, can defend at the rim, shoot the lights out. You know what I'm saying? He's kind of come out of the gates a little bit slower than many anticipated, but that's because if you look at his contemporaries, it's like, yeah, Paolo's just crazy, Chet just crazy. Like, you know what I'm saying? You look at his contemporaries, him compared to them, yeah, he's come out of the gates really slow, but he's still a very young, solid player on a cheap, affordable contract. And what you do in a deal like this is, if the Pelicans can find a reasonable and priced answer at the 5 financially, that allows you to go all in financially for an answer at the guard. Maybe that guard you're looking for isn't available just yet. Maybe that's a next offseason thing. Maybe that's a trade deadline thing. I have to remind you that you still have CJ McCollum's contract to trade, and that contract becomes more attractive because it's a declining salary moving forward. I think it's $33 million this upcoming year and $30 million the following year. So you essentially, by the trade deadline, you got a $30 million expiring salary trade chip. Let me see. Not that Jalen Green and see Houston doesn't move. Yeah. Oh, okay. I get what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It depends on they want to pay Jalen the max, because I don't think Jalen's the next player. I think that max should be reserved for Sagoon, right? This kind of reminds me of the Ricky Rubio, Kevin Love situation, like to where, if I'm not mistaken, at that time, you could only give one player a 5-year max extension, if I'm not mistaken, and they wanted to reserve that for Ricky Rubio, and that's why Kevin Love wanted to leave. Let me see. Yeah, you know what? I've been told that it's like with the Pelicans, their strength isn't like thinking a step or two ahead. The Pelicans it's like making, they almost like making impulsive deals. Either making impulsive deals or they wait too long until their trade chips or their advantage has expired. And like that's where the opportunity cost comes in. The Pelicans never seem to take advantage of these things, aside from when they went after CJ, who was a distressed asset at the time. What are we doing with CJ? I think they hold on to CJ unless, honestly, I ain't gonna lie, I think CJ to the Timberwolves makes more sense than Brandon Ingram to the Timberwolves, considering like Conley. I think he signed like what, 2-3 year extension. I don't know how much he got left in the tank. He said he don't think he got that much left in the tank. Then you got what's my man name? You got Naz Reid. He got a player option coming up soon, so he about to go get that bread somewhere. Like someone's gonna pay big money to go get Naz Reid, because his postseason was incredible. Also, let me see what else we got here. What else? For CJ. I think CJ, depending on how the season plays out, I think CJ might be gone by the deadline. Depending on how the season plays out, because I don't know. CJ he ain't thrilled with the coaching here in New Orleans, and to be honest, a lot of people ain't. All right, now here's another clean deal for our dog Darius Garland. And I know what people say, oh, the Pelicans should have got Darius Garland. They could have drafted him. But I look at it like this. The Pelicans aren't good with developing offensive talent. They just aren't good with that. So the Cavs did all the hard work for you. So now you get to trade Brandon Ingram and reap the benefits of all the Cavs' hard work. I'm a fan of Nick Richards in Charlotte. Charlotte seems like they're going to be, they're going to continue to invest in Mark Williams and a LaMelo pairing. Dangerous game they playing, but if you consider that pairing's ceiling, it makes sense to invest in both of those guys. They're still young. Mark Williams missed essentially the whole season, and Nick Richards failed admirably. I think a guy like Nick Richards is an excellent buy low, candidate for the starting center going through the season. He's a live threat, rim defender, young guy, averaged nearly a double-double this season. If you can get him for Jose Alvarado in a second, I think you have to do it. The reason you do that is because Jose Alvarado has a team option this offseason. He's going to want some money soon. Also, LaMelo Ball's always hurt, so you give Charlotte some more insurance in a Jose Alvarado. And Jose Alvarado, he played solid this season, but you gotta, with a player like that, you're selling the idea of them. You're selling that, this guy, he's an energy spark plug. You want to turn around this team. He's a winner. Like you've seen what he did in the playoffs 3 years ago. That's the idea you have to sell to Charlotte. For the Cavs, it really depends on what Spider wants. It's an obtainable wing. I don't think Jimmy Butler is like a realistic option for them. And Jimmy Butler's getting a little long in the tooth. And he's injury prone. I damn sure don't think Paul George is a realistic option for them. So it seems like Brandon Ingram may be the best option available, unless, and I don't really know how they would do this, but unless they try to pivot and get a cheaper option that gives you about the same amount of, bang for your buck, for lack of a better term, and like a guy like Jeremy Grant. Pelicans do it because Darius Garland, all-star point guard before he was paired with Spider. I already told y'all about Nick Richards. Man, you watch Darius Garland. See, a lot of people have issue with CJ McCollum, right? But they have issue with CJ McCollum at 31, 32 years old. CJ McCollum at 26, 27, 28 years old, totally different animal. Totally different animal. And if you had that CJ McCollum on this team, I don't think anyone will be talking about trading CJ McCollum. You look at Darius Garland's film, got a lot of CJ McCollum qualities in his game. Of course, he's a better facilitator, a better shooter at this stage in his career than I believe CJ McCollum was. And prior to him breaking his jaw and stuff like that, he was getting to the rim. He was doing this thing. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he lost 20 pounds after that jaw injury. So that played a huge role in him finishing the season the way he did. Now, here's a trade where, yes, I do have a 76ers trade, and that was about to be next. Let's see. All right. This is a trade that it takes a lot of forward thinking. It takes a lot of forward thinking with this one. All right. So, Brandon Ingram and Larry Nance, and this year's first. Well, this is essentially a fake first. Brandon Ingram, Larry Nance, and the 2027 first, quote unquote first, for a Paul Reed and let's say 3 or 4 picks. I put 4, but let's say 3 or 4 picks, right? The prize in this trade is the Pelicans get essentially a $40 million trade exception that would allow you to, absorb all-star caliber player or several high-end role players into that trade exception. Or if you want to think big, you can take on a bad contract. Like, let's say Jordan Poole, for example. This is hypothetical. So let's say the Pelicans get 3 picks. Let's say the Pelicans get 3 firsts, right? And it's not a soft rebuild. It's not a soft rebuild. And I'm gonna tell you why. I understand that. I understand that line of thinking. That makes a lot of sense. But it's not a soft rebuild. I'll tell you why. Because you really don't know what role players are available. Let's say Portland wants to make room for Shaedon Sharpe, or let's say Simons, or just they want to just clear the runway for Scoot and Sharpe, or Scoot and Simons, or whoever, right? They want to just clear the runway for one of their perimeter players. And the Pelicans say, okay, give me a first, and I'll just absorb them into my trade exception. You don't have to take back any salary. I'll just absorb them. Or if you go to the Washington Wizards and say, look, I see you got the Jordan Poole situation. That contract is bad. Give me 2 firsts and I'll absorb Jordan Poole into my trade exception. Now, what you did with that is you just traded Brandon Ingram and Larry Nance, who are both expiring players at this point. You traded both of those guys for about 4 or 5 picks. You just got 4 or 5 picks for Larry Nance and Brandon Ingram. If the Pelicans can straight up right now trade Brandon Ingram for 4 or 5 firsts, I think they do it. And the prize of that 76ers trade is that's 2 of those picks are 2028 picks, right? 1 pick is from the Clippers in 2028. Another pick is from the 76ers. Truthfully, I don't know if Joel Embiid playing no basketball in 2028. I hope he is, man. I hope he is, but I don't know. And I don't even know if Kawhi Leonard playing no basketball in 2028. So you really, you're counting on the demise of those franchises in 2028. And you don't even really know what's going to happen with the Wizards. Let's say in this hypothetical trade, the Wizards just continue to be the Wizards because they're nowhere near close to being like a competent team. So if the Wizards continue to be the Wizards, you just totally restock this war chest that's it's looking worse every day. Like that, the Pelicans quote unquote war chest, it ain't all this cracked up to be. I'm gonna keep it real with you. Now, another trade, this is another clean-ish trade. This is with the Pistons. Now, in this trade, let me see here. Pelicans get, I don't know why it's showing up so small. I guess I did the mobile thing. All right, so in this one, the Hawks get Evan Fournier, Larry Nance Jr., Dyson Daniels, and a Pelicans first. Pistons get Brandon Ingram. Pelicans get DeJounte Murray, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren, and 2 firsts. Right? Jalen Duren and 2 firsts. Now, I see y'all chat. Let me see which version of Poole are you getting, though. I think Poole is a guy who he's showing a willingness to come off the bench, play with the second unit. If he's just competent, he don't even have to be good, bro. That's how low the bar is. He don't even have to be good. He just has to be competent. If he's a diet version of Jordan Clarkson or if he's the pool of old, if he's that Warriors pool, then cool. You know what I'm saying? Cool. So I love beef stew. Yeah. So this is why Atlanta does this trade. Again, Evan Fournier's contract mixed with Larry Nance's contract. That's nearly $30 million in expiring salary. You got Dyson Daniels, who's a wing, cheap wing, and you get a first for your trouble. The Pistons do it because, of course, they're ready to win now. You get Brandon Ingram. Pelicans do it because you get a point guard. Get a point guard, whether you love him or not. Get a point guard, and I'm a fan of DeJounte Murray. You get a backup 4 or 5 guy and toughness in Isaiah Stewart, and you get a rim defending big who Jalen Duren's defense was down a bit this season, but that's because, he was showing he had to carry more of an offensive load. So, of course, that took away a bit from his defense. And you get 2 first-round picks. Now, the question with something like this is, Trajan Langdon is the new president of basketball operations in Detroit. Trajan Langdon has gotten an up-close look at a Brandon Ingram-led team for years now. Trajan Langdon has been. Trajan Langdon arrived in 2019, the 1920 season. He's been trying to leave since the 2021 season. He's been trying to leave the Pelicans since the 2021 season. I don't know in either way. How Trajan Langdon feels about Brandon Ingram. And that's the issue, right? That's the issue. That and even with the Cavaliers, if Coach James Borrego, he's in the running for the head coaching position in the Cavaliers. And let me tell y'all, David Griffin does not want to lose James Borrego, but he's in the running for the head coaching position in Cleveland. Another guy has gotten an up close personal look at Brandon Ingram on a team that's trying to win, and I don't know if he wants to coach Brandon Ingram either. So that's another thing. Let's see. We'll get to some of y'all questions. CJ to Detroit for 5 in a trade exception. That's probably possible. I don't know. I don't think you have to send CJ to a contender this year. I think CJ. I don't know. You know what? 2 stacks. I don't think that's the best use of that salary. I don't think it's the best because I feel like you have to get something positive back. And I feel like depending on what happens with Brandon's contract extension, like I feel like if you sign Brandon to a contract extension, especially if it's a max, CJ becomes the better trade asset at that point. Because CJ, he's playing a modern brand of basketball. He's just shot incredibly from beyond the arc. He's no one's expecting CJ to be the best or second best player on the team. Like no one's expecting that from him. And again, his contract is decreasing. In his next contract, he's certainly not getting max or near max money. So that would probably be the cleaner investment for a team that's ready to win now versus Brandon Ingram, the guy who never really plays and you don't know what you're going to get offensively. So I think CJ might be the more attractive asset if you were to hold on to him versus Brandon Ingram. What would I say? What up, Sam? What would I say the most likely outcome is? I think the Cleveland deal is the most likely outcome. I think Cleveland, most likely outcome. I think the cleanest deal and the deal that makes the most sense, bro, is really Darius Garland for Brandon Ingram. And that's if Darius Garland really wants to leave. I think Darius Garland for Brandon Ingram. And then I think, I don't know what Orlando is going to do with Clay, but I think you kind of wait a little bit and then you holler at Orlando and see what's up, with some pieces centered around the CJ deal, or even Philly. You could use that same logic I said with Brandon Ingram. If I'm not mistaken, you could use that same logic with a CJ McCollum and send him to a Philly. Or, yeah, man. And I don't think the Karl Anthony Towns deal is out of the question either. Is Sacramento realistic? Sacramento could offer a lot of firsts. They can offer a very pick-centric deal. They can offer that. It depends on the goal. If the Pelicans are thinking ahead, Sacramento is very realistic. If they feel like they have to get a bona fide star, a stud in a Brandon Ingram trade, I think that makes it less realistic. And so we'll see, man. To me, the offseason moving too slow. I think all of the teams that would be interested in Brandon Ingram are already out of the playoffs. So ideally, this would be done before the draft, man. But I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I'm gonna be back on later this month. Hopefully, hopefully something's done by then. Like, hopefully. So y'all be safe, man. Have a good day. Holla at y'all, man. Peace.